Hey everyone, welcome to our webinar. Today we are going to be talking about managing type 2 diabetes during the holidays. My name is Kate Watts. I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist with Cone Health. So thank you for being here today. The holidays can be a busy time of year, and we want to provide some tips and resources for managing your blood sugar during the holidays. Our objectives today are to review factors that affect blood sugar levels, discuss challenges to managing type 2 diabetes during the holidays, identify strategies to manage blood sugar while enjoying the holidays, and we're going to wrap up with a commitment to 1 to 2 goals that you can set for yourself this holiday season. Let's start with a review of factors that affect blood sugar. So we have two different categories, things from our lifestyle and our intake that raise blood sugar and those that lower blood sugar. So we know that certain types of foods, namely carbohydrates, which we're going to talk about today, are going to raise our blood sugar. Stress, whether that's coming from a negative or positive stressor, sometimes planning and all the items on our to-do list around the holidays can be fun and exciting, but can also cause some stress. Illness will also raise blood sugar. So if you get sick this time of year, that can be a short-term reason that your blood sugar is elevated. Now, some ways that we can lower our blood sugar include activity. So we'll talk a little bit about some tips for staying physically active during the last few slides of today's session. To help manage that blood sugar. This is especially helpful, after a big holiday meal to get a little activity in and bring that blood sugar level back down. Our diabetes medications help lower our blood sugar. And so we'll go over tips for how to stay consistent with taking your medications during travel. And then stress management. How can we manage the stress this time of year to better balance our blood sugar? So as you might realize from the factors that affect your blood sugar, there may be a few additional factors going on this time of year that would impact your blood sugar. So it's important to make checking your blood sugar a priority. So if you check your blood sugar at home with a glucometer, we realize that we can't always have perfect blood glucose control, but having this data is better than trying to make decisions with no information at all. So if your provider has asked that you check your blood sugar, trying to stay consistent with that throughout this time of year and making every effort to keep your blood glucose in your target range as often as possible is going to help our health in the long term. And you can also keep a log, and maybe that's kept within your machine itself, the glucometer itself, or you keep a paper log or you use an app on your phone. But this can really help us see trends and changes from week to week, month to month. And you may notice that your blood sugar acts a little differently this time of year with maybe consuming different foods we don't normally have throughout the year, maybe with different levels of stress. You can see how being sick, if you are checking your blood sugar, how that is impacted during that time of illness. So we really recommend keeping a log of some kind where you can, once a week, once a month, review it and kind of look for trends and factors that increase or decrease your blood sugar levels. And then also having your A1C done every 3 to 6 months to check your average blood glucose. Because when you're checking your blood sugar each day, or maybe it's a few times a week, depending on your provider, you're just seeing what your blood sugar is doing at that moment in time. And it's not really giving us the big picture. So keeping a log to review gives you a bigger picture, but also having your A1C test done is going to give us a better idea of, on average, what your blood sugar has been doing about the last 3 months. So again, work with your provider to have your A1C done at a frequency that's appropriate for you and your current A1C level, but knowing that number can be really helpful in seeing how any changes you make in your habits and in your lifestyle, how that is impacting your blood sugar and your overall health. So let's talk a little bit about ranges for checking blood sugar. In general, a target range for blood sugar before a meal or when you're fasting is between 80 and 130. 2 hours after a meal, a target range would be between 100 and 180. Now, ask your provider for individual targets. They may have slightly different ranges unique for you and your health history. In general, these are some good ranges to aim for. And so we can see here that it's very clear that food is going to raise our blood sugar, but as our body digests and processes that, it should come back down to a normal range around 4 hours or so after our meal. So when we talk about holiday foods and holiday meals today, just keep that in mind, because if you're checking your blood sugar at home during a heavily holiday meal kind of schedule, you may notice an impact to your numbers in a pretty drastic way. So what challenges do you face this time of year when it comes to keeping your blood sugar in the target range? And I would like to just say as well, if you're not checking your blood sugar at home, but you're wanting to better manage your diabetes or your blood sugar this holiday season, all of the tips and things that we're going to go over from this point forward are still going to be really helpful. You may not just see the direct impact with that data through taking your blood sugar with a glucometer, but you will even feel the difference in your blood sugar being at a nice steady level versus those highs and lows. So what challenges are you facing? Most of us have a higher exposure to tempting foods this time of year, a larger abundance of foods, whether that's a holiday gathering or treats and goodies being brought into the workplace, various celebrations. Maybe we're around different people than we usually consume food with throughout the year. Maybe some that are a little bit more pushier for you to try the dish they made, or to have another helping, or to try this dessert that they just absolutely love. So a little bit of that peer pressure around food and beverages, especially drinks. Maybe more food gifts and free food available this time of year. And most of us have a little bit more on our schedule, a little bit more on our plates, which can lead to some holiday stress. So think about influences to your eating this time of year. Maybe there's more mindless eating or more temptation. And let's just keep this in mind as we go through the tips for managing our blood sugar. So which foods affect blood sugar the most? Carbohydrates are the family of foods that break down completely into glucose or blood sugar after we eat and digest them. So carbohydrates are the foods that impact our blood sugar the most. Carbohydrates are a large family of foods. One of those categories would be our sugars or sweets. So these are things like desserts, processed foods, candy, regular soda, and sweetened beverages. Now, these are very easy for our body to digest, and so they very quickly spike our blood sugar after we eat them, versus our other two groups of carbohydrates that are going to digest a little more slowly. Starches are another group under that umbrella of carbohydrates. These are more complex and take a little longer for our body to digest. However, they will still increase our blood sugar after we eat them as they break down into glucose. So this includes all of our grains, cereals and breads, pastas and rice, tortillas, and also our starchy vegetables, including potatoes, yams, and things like peas and corn and beans. Our last category of carbohydrates is fiber, and fiber is not digested the same as other carbohydrates. So instead of raising our blood sugar levels, it actually keeps our blood glucose from rising too fast. So fiber-rich carbohydrate foods are a really healthy choice for managing our blood sugar, and also they are really beneficial for many other areas of our health as well. Fiber is going to be found in all of our plant foods like fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. So if we can choose these high fiber plant foods as our carbohydrate source at our meals, we're going to have much more steady blood sugar control. And it's also going to help keep us full and satisfied, which helps with appetite management and portion control. It's great for our heart, helps lower cholesterol, it keeps us regular. So as much as you can, choose high fiber foods as your carbohydrate at your meals and snacks. Here's the plate method, and this is a great tool that can be used all year round, but can be especially helpful during holidays or large events gathered around food. Maybe we have the big buffet spread and we're going down the line and making our plate. We can keep a simple visual like the plate method in mind. So if we look at our plate, it's cut in half, and then one half is split in half again. So we have 2/4 of our plate, one filled with protein and one filled with starch. And then we have a half of our plate filled with vegetables. These would be the non-starchy vegetables that do not really increase our blood sugar much at all. They're packed with nutrition. They're low calorie. They're going to be what provides color on our plate. So when you're building your plate at different holiday events or gatherings, really try to get some color present and as many different colors as you can. So when we fill up with vegetables, and that's really the challenge, okay, that's the hardest part, is getting enough vegetables on the plate. That naturally helps us reduce the portions of our starch and our protein. Now for our protein portion of the plate, we want to try to choose lean or low fat proteins for our heart health and keep it to about the size of the palm of our hand. Thinking about how proteins are prepared can be really helpful as well. So choosing more grilled, baked, roasted items and less fried items. Now let's get to that starch portion of our plate. The starch category is part of our carbohydrates, and any grains or starches we consume would go here in about a 1 cup portion to fill that quarter of our plate. Now, these are the foods that will increase our blood sugar, but they also give us great energy. So we don't have to cut out or eliminate these foods completely. We just want to keep them to a moderate portion and balance them out with the vegetables and protein that is on our plate at each meal. Now, the plate method is a very simple visual method, and I love it because you can use it anywhere. At home when you're planning meals, when you're out to eat, when you're at a relative's house or a friend's house. However, it's not very specific, and if you want a more specific method for controlling the amount of carbohydrates that you consume, you can use a carb counting method. So in general, we recommend that people aim for 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrate per meal and aim for 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrate per snack. So for example, each 1/2 cup serving of starch is approximately 15 to 20 grams of carbohydrate. So we can choose 3 to 4 1/2 cup servings of starch per meal, balanced with proteins and veggies, and fall within the 45 to 60 gram goal when we are carb counting. Now, we can also read nutrition labels for packaged foods, and that can be especially helpful for grab and go snack items. And it also requires us to think about our meal timing. If we're wanting to limit our grams of carbohydrate per meal and per snack throughout our day, we might need to space out things like desserts so that they fall 1 to 2 hours after a mealtime, and use that 15 to 30 grams of carbohydrate for your snack to spend on your dessert item. So with holiday meals, when we tend to be eating larger portions, this method of spreading food out across our day can really help give your body a break when it comes to all the sugar that is coming in at one time. So think about, as we're eating carbohydrates and it's breaking down into glucose, and that glucose or blood sugar is entering into our bloodstream, we want to prevent a traffic jam. And so if everyone gets on the highway at the same time, if we have one large meal for our day, we're going to have a traffic jam. We're going to have high blood sugar. But if we can spread out, okay, you're going to leave this morning for the beach. I'll leave in the afternoon. Someone else is going to leave tomorrow. Then we're not going to have that traffic jam of high blood sugar. So spreading out your carbohydrates through regular meal timing can be really helpful this time of year. So here's an example of what carb counting can help do as far as moderation with the foods you're choosing. And moderation means we're eating the amounts of foods that are going to be nourishing to our body and helpful in managing our blood sugar without having to deprive ourselves of the foods that we love. Okay, so here's an example for a holiday meal. Maybe we have a half a cup of a baked sweet potato. That's 15 grams of carbohydrate. A half a cup of stuffing or dressing, which is about 20 grams of carbohydrate. A fourth a cup of cranberry sauce, which, yes, believe it or not, is 25 grams of carbohydrate, and a sugar at that. Turkey, which is a protein, your green beans, which is a vegetable, that meal is going to total you 60 grams of carbohydrate. And we have our protein and our vegetable to balance that out. Another example would be a half a cup of mashed potatoes, one dinner roll, a half a cup of mac and cheese, some ham for our protein, and some roasted Brussels sprouts for our vegetable. That's also going to come in at 60 grams. Another example would be for your snack, if you're wanting to have dessert during that 15 to 30 gram of carbohydrate range. We could have one slice of pumpkin pie for 30 grams, and that is 1/8 of an 8-inch pie. A slice of fruit pie, like apple pie, but with crust on the bottom only. That's going to be 30 grams for 1/8 of the 8-inch pie. 2-inch cake without frosting is 15 grams, and a 2-inch cake with frosting is 30 grams of carbohydrate. 2.5-inch brownie is 30 grams of carbohydrate. So there are ways to consume some of those sweeter treat foods that we really enjoy and get a lot of pleasure from without overdoing it on your carbohydrate bank. And this is a really sustainable, long-term method for managing your blood sugar and being able to eat your favorite foods and enjoy your favorite foods with your family at all times of the year. So let's compare some holiday meal options. I've got two pictures of a holiday plate here. And so you'll notice they're very different, but they're very similar ingredients, just prepared in different ways. So we're going to call the plate on the left the more indulgent meal, and we're going to call the plate on the right the more mindful meal. So take a minute to consider these two holiday meals. What differences do you see? And think through how you would feel after finishing each meal. Do you think you'd feel stuffed? Do you think you would feel satisfied? Maybe ready for a nap? Let's start with the more indulgent plate. So the most obvious way to grade your plate is to look for evidence of color. If all items on the plate are similar in color, usually beige or tan, then we know there are some important food groups missing, namely vegetables. So we do have some vegetables on this plate. We have some green beans, we have some sweet potatoes, but they are covered and buried in added fat and added sugar and some more processed foods like a cream of canned soup or some marshmallows. We see lots of gravy covering about half of the plate. We see lots of bread. We see more processed, sugary form of our cranberry on the plate there. And overall, we see pretty large portions as well. Let's compare that to our more moderate or mindful plate. We are off the bat seeing a lot more color, right? And this color provides interest and excitement for your eyes. So believe it or not, you're already more satisfied with your food before you even start eating. We also see that the foods on our plate are closer to their natural whole form. So we have actual green beans. It looks like maybe sauteed with some mushrooms. We have our roasted sweet potatoes so that natural sweet flavor can come through. We have still our family favorites when it comes to holidays, like stuffing, but we've got smaller, more moderate portions. A little bit less of the gravy, right? Easing up on that a little bit. More natural, less sugary form of those cranberries. And we've got added vegetables, veg, to fill up that plate and keep us full and satisfied. So your actual plate on the day of a holiday gathering will likely end up looking like something in between these two. And that's totally okay. At the end of the day, it really is just one meal. But if we can remember to try and include some lean protein and veggies and realize that we don't have to eat all of the dishes that are offered simply because they are on the table. We can plan our splurges and balance that with the healthier options available at the meal. So let's go into some tips for holiday meal times. Tip number one is to don't go hungry. If you're famished before sitting down to a big meal, you are almost always guaranteed to overeat. Don't skip meals in an effort to save up carbs. This will only backfire. So remember, I was talking about the traffic jam of blood sugar coming into our body. We don't want to skip a meal and save up carbs and have all of that sugar, all of that glucose coming into our blood at one time and causing that traffic jam, that high blood sugar. We want to stick to our normal meal and snack schedule to best manage our appetite so that we can consume and enjoy a regular sized portion of a balanced plate when we get to that holiday mealtime. The next tip is to eat mindfully. After a few bites, ask yourself, am I really enjoying this? And only choose foods that truly give you great satisfaction. We are again often around an abundance of foods this time of year, and sometimes things look more delicious than they actually are. So just be mindful. And if a very beautifully decorated cookie doesn't taste that great, it's okay to stop after the first bite and throw the rest of the way and save that for something else you're truly going to enjoy. How else can we eat mindfully? We can eat slowly and savor every bite. And this allows us to have more awareness around our fullness and hunger signals as well, so that we can stop eating once we're satisfied and not overly miserably stuffed. Remember, you can always have leftovers at your next meal or snack. You can always pack food up to take home. So don't feel like you have to consume everything in one sitting. This tip is one of my favorites because we get to plan our splurges. We obviously want to enjoy all the yummy special foods that come with the holiday season, but let's think about which foods really are special to you. What's your must have? What's that food or recipe or dish that you really look forward to all year at this special holiday versus those foods that you could probably do without or you really can have any old time of the year? So be more choosy about sweets and desserts. Again, remember to maybe have those separate from your big meal times and eat them slowly, really savoring every bite. Next tip is to think small. Portion size really is everything. That's why I love the portion plate. That's why I love that eating in moderation doesn't deprive us from our favorite foods, but we've got to consume things in the right portion to help balance what we like to eat with how our body needs to be fed and nourished to better control our blood sugar all year long. So how can we think small? Some tips for portion control. One is just to use smaller plates and bowls and glasses because you'll naturally serve yourself smaller portions. And research shows that we actually end up eating up to 30% less when we're using these smaller serving platters. When there's a large variety of foods to choose from, that can be overwhelming as well, and we want to try everything. So try serving yourself taste and bites rather than full portions. Once you've identified what your favorite 1 or 2 bites are, then you might go back for a larger portion of your favorite items. If you like to cook all throughout the year, or especially this time of year, this is a great opportunity to try an ingredient swap and try remaking your recipes to be a little bit more diabetes friendly. I have all kinds of different swaps here, substitutions that people like to use and incorporate into their recipes. Now, there may be certain recipes that you don't want to adjust at all. You really have a special family favorite for a certain holiday. But other recipes, there may be some wiggle room here to sub out ingredients, try an ingredient swap, maybe try a whole different recipe altogether. Like we saw those sweet potatoes, here in the South, a lot of us love to do a sweet potato casserole, but we load it up with brown sugar and marshmallows and candied nuts. And really, sweet potatoes are already sweet on their own. So a nice like crock pot cubed sweet potato mixture or roasted sweet potatoes are going to also be really delicious. So don't be afraid to switch it up. Maybe it's just 1 or 2 recipes at a time alongside your more traditional dishes, but you really can save on sugar and carbohydrates pretty significantly when you focus on substituting out some of those more high sugar ingredients for more balanced ingredients, such as, a Greek yogurt instead of sour cream or mayonnaise, applesauce instead of oil or butter, cutting sugar in half for recipes, subbing in a teaspoon of vanilla for flavor, trying stevia or Splenda in place of sugar. There's baking products that you can try from those brands. Maybe cauliflower recipes instead of mashed potatoes, rice, or pizza crust. Being very considerate about which condiments you're choosing and reading the nutrition labels for how much added sugar and carbohydrate are in the bottled condiments. Choosing whole grain where you can. So subbing in whole wheat flour or oats in place of some of the white flour. Going for crushed nuts instead of breadcrumbs, so getting in some extra fiber. And you can get creative, whatever works for you. Anytime you can add in more veggies or cut back the sugar or fat, all those little changes are going to add up over time. So here's a list of recipe resources that I wanted to include for you today. All of these have sections, so they're all online recipe resources, and all of these have sections that you can search for different types of recipes. Maybe it's quick and easy, maybe it's weeknight meals, maybe it's comfort foods. All of these have a section for diabetes-friendly recipes, which I love. Diabetes Food Hub, the first resource here, is an amazing resource. They have so many delicious recipes. It's a really great user-friendly website. I can't recommend the Diabetes Food Hub enough. Very clear nutrition labels if you want to see what's actually in the recipes. It is wonderful. All of these other ones, again, you can search for diabetes friendly on Food Network, Taste of Home, Cooking Light, all recipes. But some of my other favorites include Eating Well. They have such a great database of healthy recipes. And then they also have the ability to choose meal plans, which I think are really helpful for a 5 or 7 day meal plan based on your needs. And of course, Pinterest is a great way to get inspiration for recipes too. And there's lots of users on there that are focused on recipes for those managing their blood sugar. All right, our next tip, sip smart. So we've talked a lot about food. Wanted to talk a little bit about beverages before we move on to activity. Going easy on sugary beverages like sodas, sweet tea, fruit punch, sweetened coffees, eggnog, mixed alcoholic drinks like margaritas and daiquiris. The list goes on. There are lots of sugary beverages out there to choose from, and those can add up to that carbohydrate balance very quickly. So remember, if you think back to our goals for carb counting of 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrate per meal. Most medium-sized 20-ounce sweet teas, fruit punch are going to have at least 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrate, your whole budget for a meal in your beverage. So instead, we encourage people to choose plain, sparkling, or infused water more often. And if you are drinking alcohol during the holidays, select a light beer, a glass of wine, or a shot of liquor on the rocks, or with a sugar-free mixer like club soda, diet tonic water, or diet soda. Those mixed drinks, the margarita mixes, the daiquiri mixes, the eggnogs can be really high in carbohydrate. Now, of course, we want to watch our portion and drink in moderation, alternating our drinks with water in between so that we can better manage our blood sugar and also help keep our wits about us so that we're making smart decisions with our food as well. So let's talk about alcohol and blood sugar. Drinks with carbohydrates can raise our blood sugar levels. Alcohol itself does not change into glucose, but it does prevent your body from making glucose or releasing stored glucose. And that can actually lead to low blood sugar levels. We really want to avoid low blood sugar, and so never drink alcohol on an empty stomach. Always plan to eat when you're having an alcoholic drink. Also, check your blood sugar to make sure it's at a safe level before you drink alcohol, so within the target range of 90 to 150. Practice moderation, and be sure to check that none of your medications interact with alcohol. What about when we're eating away from home? Many of us enjoy dining out and being waited on, but we want to also make choices at restaurants that help manage our blood sugar just like we would at home. You can use the plate method at restaurants, and as you're looking at items on a menu, start thinking, where can I find some vegetables? Where can I find a lean protein? What carbohydrates do I want to spend my carb allowance on today to fill up that quarter of my plate? You can look up menu items ahead of time, and this gives you a little bit more time to process the menu and think through what you would want to order before you're actually there in the moment. You can ask for sauces and dressings to be served on the side and use those more sparingly or in more moderate portions. A lot of times there's hidden added sugar as well as sodium and fat in those sauces and dressings, and we don't always think about those things. Asking for a to-go box when your meal is served can help decrease your portion sizes. Bonus, we get delicious leftovers the next day. We can split an entree or dessert with someone else. We need to think about the freebies that come before the meal. So skipping the bread or chips before the main meal, because that's going to add a lot of carbohydrate and fill us up. Beware of carbohydrates from sugary drinks. So again, if we're wanting to splurge on maybe a sugary drink, just have one, and then instead of accepting refills, switch to water afterwards. And that can help keep your carbohydrates in check a little bit better. Also, if you're having an appetizer or you plan to have dessert, maybe we have a lower carb entree, like a big entree salad with some grilled chicken or shrimp or steak on top, and less of the starches during the main portion of your meal. So let's switch gears here into talking about activity. So physical activity like brisk walking, bicycling, hiking, ice skating, skiing, and sledding, these can all help relieve stress. They can help regulate appetite, and they can help lower blood sugar after holiday eating. So lots of benefits to staying active throughout these colder months, this holiday season. And again, as I mentioned, the timing of your activity, whether it's before or after a meal, can really help with the response of your blood sugar to food. And then I love that it can help with that stress management piece, because gosh, don't we just have a lot on our to-do list this time of year? And this can really help get us out into fresh air, have a little mental break from that running to-do list, and can really help bring that stress level back down. It can also be a great way to stay social and in a healthy way, because again, a lot of gatherings this time of year are around food and beverages. So gathering to do something active together is a really great way to stay healthy and social as a family or with coworkers or neighbors or a group of friends. So you can be that positive influence for your group by building everybody up to have the willpower to stay active during this time of year. And then another big part of stress management is taking time to relax. We know that managing our stress can help improve our blood sugar. We also know that stress is a normal part of our daily life, and so we need to take time each day to relax. It's not enough to relax on the weekends or when you're on vacation. Each and every day, we need to take small habits that help relieve the stress that's built up during our day. So some favorites are yoga or tai chi, meditation and prayer, deep breathing, reading or journaling. All of these are activities that can be done easily with very little resources. And if nothing else, we can always come back to our breath. It is always with us, whether we're in the car in traffic, whether we're in a work meeting that's causing stress, whether we have screaming kids in the background while we're trying to prepare food for our holiday gathering. We can always come back to our breath, taking a deep inhale and exhale, and we are going to feel a little bit better. Also, we want to encourage you to set priorities this time of year. Focus on doing what is most important each day. And you can ask yourself, if something pops up, if you get a text or you get an email and you feel like you need to take care of it right away, pause and ask yourself, do I really need to do this today? Because we can only handle so many tasks in a day, and it's going to be more overwhelming, more stressful if we push priority items aside to do something else. So it's okay to say no or not right now, and we can ask for help with tasks that come up. And also, we can just look at our list of expectations or things that we have to get done, and maybe we go ahead and just scratch out 3 right now and say, you know what? I can drop those off my list. They don't need to be on my plate, and that's going to really clear my mind to do these other items a lot better this time of year. All right, let's talk about traveling with diabetes on this slide, and then we're going to do a quick activity committing to 1 to 2 goals this season. So when we travel, those changes in your normal routine might make it a little harder to follow your meal plan and medication schedule. So we want to be prepared for the unexpected so that we can stay consistent with our diabetes management regimen. So always, if you have a glucometer and you check your blood sugar as part of your management plan, make sure to carry it with you whenever you travel. We also encourage to have a snack or drink available. So if you're flying or driving, keeping a snack and drink in your carry-on with you or in the front of your car, not packed away in the trunk in a cooler or something like that, but have it where you can reach it if you were to feel the symptoms of a low blood sugar and need to eat a little something. Having something available is a really good idea. Don't forget to pack your medicine. So you may create like a packing checklist that you could use anytime you travel, just as a constant reminder to remember all of these things. You may ask for help from someone else to help you remember to pack your glucometer, snacks, and medicine. You can also use glucose tablets instead of snacks. These are going to be a really easy way to raise blood sugar. So if you're someone who does tend to have low blood sugar, these steps are especially important. And glucose tablets can just be a convenient way to have that sugar supplement on hand. So making sure that you can reach these items in an emergency if you need them. And if you're the one driving for travel, check your blood sugar before you drive long distances and pull over if you do feel symptoms of a low blood sugar. And for everyone, it's important to stop and rest and stretch every 2 to 3 hours. And if you do check your blood sugar multiple times a day, try to pull over and stop and stay on your normal routine with checking your blood sugar. So let's wrap up committing to some goals this season. So you can simply check off 1 to 2 goals that stick out to you from this list, and then you can fill in the blanks so that it's personalized to you and your individual goals around blood sugar management. So maybe your goal is to check your blood sugar a certain number of times per day, a certain number of days per week. And this is a great thing to discuss with your provider to see what would be helpful for you and them as you're reviewing that information together during your doctor's visits. You may want to focus on using the plate method at your meals. You might want to commit to being active a certain number of minutes for a certain number of days per week. And you can start small here. Think about how often you're currently active and slowly increase that activity level over time. One very simple goal that makes a big difference and can be quite enjoyable, honestly, is to go on a walk after large holiday meals. Get the family, bundle everybody up, and go on a walk, a bike ride, whatever, after a meal. This is a great way to get moving and let that digestion happen and to help keep your blood sugar better managed after a larger meal. You might want to focus on looking at your own recipes and what you're bringing to events or serving at events, and maybe play around with adjusting your recipes to lower that amount of carbohydrate. Or you might be ready to focus on managing your stress levels, and you can fill in how you might plan to do that. Whether it is a little bit of quiet time in the morning by yourself to journal and meditate or pray, or maybe it's by incorporating that physical activity or something else. So choose 1 to 2 goals this season. Remember to enjoy the season. I really thank you for being here during this time with me. Thank you and happy holidays.